This video is going to model how to use the actual PAO science data collection form, along with the item checklist or those variables that are found in the form, and the standards support document, all in conjunction with how we use these things with the NAEP selected items. So first, I'd like you to log into the Teacher Learning Hub. And then in the Teacher Learning Hub, of course, go to our course. And this information is going to be available in the Apply Skills and Concepts section, and it's grayed out right now because it's not been released to all of you, but we're going to look at the Apply Skills and Concepts section. So in the lesson, the first thing that you will see is the home page and instructions, and you'll want to read through these just to get a little more familiar with how everything's organized here. After you've read through this screen, then you're going to select Continue to page 2. Here we have all of the information for all of our PAO groups A through H, and so if you look, you can see how those were divided up, which this terminology may look a little more familiar to you, and our corresponding identifier for the PAO group. So for instance, PAO group E is the middle school Earth and Space Science group. All of these are links to access the NAEP selected items. And on the bottom you can see a summary of how many tasks have been selected for each of the groups. For illustrative purposes, I'm going to continue on to the Life Science section. So once you select the Life Science group, you're going to be given this page, and in this page you can either continue on to the middle school Life Science or the high school science. And for the item that I've chosen to go through as an example, we're going to click on High School Life Science, and you'll want to take a moment to read through all of these notes about each of the sections. So here are notes about paper science and some reminders, and then there's some notes about the ICTs or interactive computer tasks, the HOTS or hands-on tasks, the TEL, which is technology and engineering literacy, some videos about TEL, some notes about the ELA items, and some notes about the math items. If we scroll down, we can see that I'm in Group D, High School Life Science, and in here we have all of the links to access the information, and we're going to work through one of the paper science items. And instead of downloading all of the information here, I've already selected the item that I'm going to look at, so I'll pull that up now. Here's the item we're going to look at, and this may be familiar to you from the application. And now I need to look at this in relationship to the form. So if I'm going to supply my either 3-item assignment that I'll submit in the hub, or for our individual reviews that we'll go through as a group at the workshop, I'll need the form to work with here. So let's go back to access that. So we'll need to continue here on this page. And here in the instructions to download the forms. And so we're going to use this information. So I'll pull that up. And we also need the form. And you'll want to make sure that you read through the instructions. So as you can see, the form pages mirror the information that is found in the hub. So I'll download this. Notice I select on that download arrow. I was not working in the browser for this. So now they're both here for me to access. So I'm going to take the information here, and there are some things to pay attention to here. So for submitting the assignment in the hub, I'm going to submit my last name, my group, and the item that I'm working with. So to do this, I'm going to save it as and then the item information can be found right here. So this is the item reference code. So that's how we'll be able to track all of the information for the tasks that were assigned to each of the groups. So now I have this kind of unique naming convention for this file, so I'm going to save it there instead of working in this one. So I have that one, So you're going to have a couple of things to kind of look at as you go through this information. Okay, so the information that you're looking at between all of these materials, I have instructions on this one for how to complete the form and how to use these two things with the item. So you can see that I've actually pulled these up in Acrobat. They're not in Reader because we have access to Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. However, you should be able to work on this form whether you have Acrobat or Adobe. So make sure you can kind of see this submit form button, but again, as the instructions state, please not use this. Please submit it as though it's an attachment. So you're going to upload this information into the Teacher Learning Hub, and when we're in our PAO groups in the in-person workshop, you're going to actually transfer these. We're either going to use thumb drives or Google Drive or Dropbox or some way. We want to pretend these are attachments, because if we use this submit form button, sometimes when we're transferring this information via email, those submissions get lost in cyberspace land. So we just want to not go through the submit form button, and then the OPI will actually manually extract the information here. So this is an editable form, and I am the author. And again, we already have that item reference code. So this is a unique identifier. It was administered in 2000. It was given in grade 12, and then these are the block and item set, or that question when it was administered. So that information is helpful if we ever need to go back to anything. We have that level of information. And then for this activity, it's going to be a standalone item. I'm just going to use this item that I have over here on the right-hand side. And for the purposes of this video, we're just going to say it's a distinct alignment, and I do agree with where this item was aligned. So that information is down here at the bottom of the item information. So I'm going to say that it does align to this standard and that it is strongly aligned. And then I need to get some evidence statement information. So how would I go about doing that? This is where it might be nice to use the information in those support documents. So I'm going to select Access Montana Support Documents. And that's going to pull up all of these materials that we've made available to you. And so I need to find the high school life science. And here we can see the unique identifier. We can see a PE, which is an actual link. We can see the Montana Adopted Performance Standard, and we can see the Montana Standard Writing Team's guidance. In some cases, there may be highlights or bolds or areas of emphasis that they've indicated. We can also see the foundation box information, so what DCI, what practice, and what cross-cutting concept this performance expectation is eliciting. And then anywhere that the Montana Writing Team has indicated Indian Ed for All connections, there will be information here, and then any connections across domains or any additional information that's specific to the performance expectation that they reviewed. And then these highlighted cells are trying to call attention to any performance expectation that was not adopted in Montana's performance standards. So with this item example, we have indicated that it is aligned to high school LS3-1. So let's look at that performance expectation, and I need those evidence statements again to put in the form. So I would scroll down here. I look carefully at the item because I've already worked through it like a student to notice and record any of the steps that I took to complete the task. And after doing that and thinking about this item, which says, biologists know that nearly all cells in a person's body contain the same genes. For example, kidney cells contain the same genes as the cells that normally make hemoglobin. Give these facts, explain why kidney cells do not make hemoglobin, even though they contain the hemoglobin gene. So I'm going to look at that, and I'm thinking really I have 3 levels to select from: articulating an explanation of phenomena, evidence, reasoning, and just for the purpose of this work, I'm just going to copy the information here, and I'm going to go back to my form, and I'm going to say this is the evidence statement for students. And then I might want additional information here. So we could go back to the Montana supporting documents, which are right here. And for this one, we know, or in the performance expectation, that this is high school. And maybe I want to look in our online repository. I want to be able to filter on that. So I'm going to say I want to tag it there. And then the DCI, this is and I also want to be able to filter by that component DCI. And for the practice, looking at constructing explanations, we're going to focus in on that one. And I want to be able to look that up as well. And then for the cross-cutting concept, and I also want to be able to filter on that. So now that I have that information, I don't really have any additional comments to write in here. However, you may, because there are definitely things about these items that we need to consider if we're going to use them with our students that we may not have necessarily covered in all aspects of the form. So if you have anything to put in here, feel free to do so. Right now I'm just going to put not applicable. And as you notice, the red boxes for each of these are required, but there was not one for comments or for these extra layers for any secondary or tertiary alignments that we wanted to make. So now some language features here. So we definitely need to know about cell. And if I were to go back through and read the passage a little more carefully, there might be some other things that we need to describe here for language features, whether that's academic or discipline specific. And so for the purposes here, I'm just going to do this because I'm not really going through this. I'm just trying to show you guys how to navigate with the form. And then we can look at the DOK and the revised Bloom's taxonomy. For DOK, for this one, since we are citing evidence, I'm going to put it to level 3. And then for the question, so for this, I would want to look at the Hess rigor matrix. And to access that, we could go back here and select Hess's rigor matrix. And I would scroll down to page 4. And so I selected DOK 3. And what they're asking the students to do is really apply their knowledge here. So I'm going to use this evidence statement for the form. And I'm going to say apply in this side. We have here. And then the next aspects of Form 1 are really important, and that's any past or prerequisite knowledge students should have. So really look at those learning progressions for the DCIs and put in any prior information students might need in order to be able to correctly answer this item. Also, any misconceptions would be important to include here. And again, for the purposes of this video, since these are required fields, I have to have something in them. And I'm just going to do this. Any additional skills or knowledge that are introduced with this task, and then finally, kind of where we're going next with this. And again, we could look at those learning progressions to help us, but since it's high school level, we would just want to note any college or career ready expectations maybe, or what we would do in our scope and sequence after we have introduced this concept. So now that we've filled out Form 1, there's one more thing I want to show you before we move on to the next form, is just what's included in that link. So included in this link is not only the item, but also the additional details of this item. So the key and scoring guide, here are some sample responses from students, and even performance information. So how either the nation's public performed, or if we wanted to look at Montana specifically, we could look at that. And so you have scale score information and the percent of students who answered in a correct or incorrect manner, or omitted or off task. So that's what the link will allow you to do, is to look at additional information about this item. That concludes how to for Form 1, which will be day 1, and the next one will be how to complete Form 2.